What is on the menu for today? First off, I'm sorry I missed the question everything last week. We were so busy with Panic to Freedom. I know I've been saying that, and because quite literally we are. It's been like 12-hour days of working nonstop to get ready for the launch. Just so you know, if you're watching and getting ready, the launch is going to be on February 20th, and we have a very special exclusive offer happening just on that one day only. So just, pay attention, stay tuned to it if it's something that you're interested in, something that you're looking forward to. Beyond that, let's begin.
Wake up everyone. How can you sleep at a time like this unless the dreamer is the real you?
When I first started traveling, I got this one question a lot, and then it kind of went away for a while. And then I started posting more stuff about me traveling again, and people started asking the same question over and over. And I never really knew how to answer it, because I didn't think the answer was sufficient. The answer wasn't, because I didn't even know, how things were happening, how things were progressing. And I think because deep down there was a question that was not being answered that was fundamental to understanding this question. Because when I first started traveling, I just said, I've sold everything I had, I got a plane ticket, I'm going down to California, and I'm going to start traveling. I'm going to start meeting up with cool people from the internet, cool people who watch spirit science, and I'm going to stay with them and learn about the universe, and I'm going to travel, and I'm going to make more videos, and I'm going to have lots of fun. So when I did that, I had probably about $200 to my name, and I actually made a video that was called, I think, You Can Do Anything, and I was talking about how you don't need money. People have this idea that you need to have all this money in order to do all of these things. And I was like, listen, I got $200 to my name. I'm in California. I have no intentions of ever going back home. Or maybe not ever going back home, but I have no intentions of going home. And I feel free. I feel really good. And I'm in a good space. And I wanted to invite everyone else watching this to, maybe take off some limits that you've placed on yourself, or look at some of the limits that you have placed on yourself and say, well, maybe we don't need to put those there anymore. Maybe I can do something that everyone else is telling me that I can't do. So as time went on and I traveled a bit, I got people saying, how do you travel with no money? And I was like, I have no idea. Because I was doing a whole bunch of different things. The number one source of income was there was probably two main sources of income. One of them was, I was constantly doing like side projects. I'd be having to take all this time out of my life to work on logos or graphic design or animation and these kind of like client projects or things. People would email me and say, hey, could you do a logo for me? Could you do a graphic design thing? And I was like, sure, yeah, totally. And it would create a little bit of an equal exchange, and that would help me travel a little bit. And the second way that money would come in was actually a lot through donations. And I can't express enough just how grateful and thankful I am for everyone out there who's donated. And you know who you are, and I love you so much, and thank you so much, because it's all helped in one way or another. One thing I found was that it was so hard to try and balance all of that and make videos, and that's why, people have been, hey, there's no spirit science. When are we going to see more spirit science? I really love, and I totally get where you're coming from, because it's a space of like, I really love this series. Please make more. I really want you to make more. And in my life, I'm going, how can I do this? Because I do not want to settle for saying, okay, in order to make spirit science, I have to go back to the original conditions that I was under to make the series. And those original conditions wasn't very fun, because I wasn't spending time with friends. I wasn't doing anything exciting except for making cartoons. And even though I love making cartoons, I want to experience more of what life has to offer. And I think many of you do as well. And so ever since I've left, one of the things that has been this constant kind of energy struggle, you could say, is with money, is with finances, and this fundamental question I think that I kind of have to go back to, and I mentioned at the beginning, is what even is money? So to talk about money with me, I've once again invited Ray to come and share his knowledge and wisdom in regards to money, because a lot of what I've been learning has come from him. And well, he's a very wise person, very aware, very smart, and I would love it if we could all lend our ears to see what he has to say.
When we talk about money, the first question I always have is, well, What are we talking about? For example, if someone says, you know, oh, hey, I want $100. You want $100 of what? $100 of bananas? $100 of apples? $100 of what? Whatever that might be. So what then is money? Well, I mean, it's a piece of paper, really. It's supposed to represent something. But in actuality, what money is a representation of another representation of another representation of a value judgment of yet again another representation. And I know that sounds really complicated, and it is, and it's complicated on purpose, because those that control this, what money represents, those who have a lot of influence over what the money represents, kind of like to keep it a little complicated so that nobody really knows what's going on, so they can continue to, you know, exploit and manipulate, in essence.
Here's the thing, in the more new age or spiritual or conscious communities, oftentimes we have this idea that you can't have money. You can't have it in your life. You shouldn't look at it. You shouldn't talk to it. It's kind of this hippie mindset, you know, that money is bad. It's wrong. You know, if you've seen Zeitgeist, you know, it's this terrible thing. We have to find ways of pulling it in and using it, but pushing it away at the same time. And that doesn't really work for me. And of course it doesn't, and it didn't, because that's what I was doing. I was like, I don't want to worry about money, I don't want to think about it, it'll work itself out. And it did. I just trusted in the universe. Things always came along exactly at the right time. And at the same time, you know, it was a struggle.
If you think about it, you know, what is money? Money represents what? It's a measurement. It's a measurement of something, like an inch. Let's say I want 5 pounds. 5 pounds of what? You don't have a pound, you have a pound of something. So you don't have $100, you have $100 of something. So what is that something? Well, money would ideally represent some sort of ability to accomplish something, or energy, or force, or something like that, right? So in this case, maybe we could kind of take a look and say, in our world, money might represent skill multiplied by time. It might represent how good you are at something, and then how much time you spend doing it, or how much time it takes you to accomplish a particular task.
It's not the money that's bad. It's not the money that's the problem. But it's what you do with it. It's the intention behind it. Because the money is just a representation of this energy, of your time, energy, of your expertise, of your resources that go into something, go into making something happen, go into doing something, and then usually you get a monetary return. You know, so you create an equal exchange. You put in your effort and energy into something, and you get money in return.
So let's say, for example, I was a cobbler and I was making a pair of shoes. Well, if I could make a pair of shoes and it took me 3 weeks to make a pair of shoes, then someone would say, okay, well, I'm going to compensate you. I'm going to pay you according to your skill level and, you know, maybe how fast I could get those shoes. Sometimes if you want it quicker, it's more expensive. So you're saying, I want you to be more skilled and be able to accomplish it in a shorter period of time. So it gets kind of muddy and complicated. And an example of what I'm talking about is, call a plumber on Sunday to fix your plumbing. It's 2 to 3 times more expensive than if you call him on Wednesday. Or better yet, call that same plumber on Christmas Day and ask him to come and fix your backup toilets, and you'll see how much money that costs. It's going to be, you know, maybe 50 times more expensive than it would be if you called him on just any regular Wednesday. So now there's this time involved. I want it done now. So in the world of business, there's these sort of 3 pillars. I learned this from an absolutely wonderful Portuguese gentleman when I was working in Apple Computer many, many years ago. He said there's 3 elements in business, and you can usually only optimize on 2 out of the 3. So there's functionality, what you want something to be able to do, and then cost or expense involved, how much it costs, and then there's how long it takes to make that happen. So let's say, for example, that you want to buy a car, and you want this car to be exactly what you envision in your mind, exactly what you want this car to be, and you want it really, really cheap. Well, you're going to be waiting an awful long time to get it. Or let's go in reverse. Let's say that you want that car to be exactly what you want it to be, and you want it right now. It's going to cost a lot of money. Or maybe let's do the third rendition of it. Let's say you want it right now, and you want it to be really cheap. Well, it's not going to do exactly everything that you want it to do. So there's this kind of existing world paradigm of how you can only optimize on one out of those, or two out of those three different elements. Here's where we get into so much trouble, is that the person that's producing the products and the person that's using the products or services aren't really connected to each other. Instead, there's this entire middle ground in here, and all of this middle stuff in the middle ends up siphoning all of the time, effort, energy, skill, and resources that are put into the creation of things. By the time all of those things take their cut and their share, the person over here and the person over here are essentially left with nothing. And a perfect example of what I'm talking about is how a lot of folks will go to their job, and they'll work at their job, and then they'll spend their time and their skill set to get a piece of paper back, money, or in this case, a direct deposit that goes to your checking account or what have you. And so then you take that piece of paper or that direct deposit, and then oftentimes what people do is they'll take that very same time, effort, and energy representation, the money, and then they'll buy the products and goods and services that they actually helped to produce or helped to make happen. For example, let's say a lot of folks that work at Apple Computers will buy Apple Computers. So here they are working in the actual enterprise, and then they spend the same time, effort, energy, and resources working on that thing to buy that thing. It seems a little backwards to me. And so where does that money go? It essentially evaporates into the corporate nether, is what I like to call it, the corporate ether. And then what happens to that money in the corporate ether? What happens to that representation of your time, effort, and energy? Well, they spend an awful lot of time, effort, and energy trying to figure out how they can pay you less and get you to do more. So they're really trying really, really hard to narrow that siphon, if you will, so that they can take as much out as possible. And often they don't really care if they kill it. And so we see folks in China being exploited for 10 cents an hour, or and the same thing happens in some of the Southern American countries. We see these people being exploited because somehow we have value judged that their time and their skill is not worth as much as ours. So this paradigm has to change. This paradigm has to shift completely. We have to begin to ask ourselves, what is it that we want? What is it that we really need? What is it that's good for us? And how can we get that? How can we create that, co-create that with people of like mind, so that we're exchanging an equal value back and forth with each other?
Instead of us all trying to figure out ways to do things without money, why don't we just show all of each other how to create it, so that all of us can have all of the abundance that we want, and the information and the knowledge and the awareness to do with it the things that are going to help change the planet.
What if I'm a master woodworker, and over here we have a master cobbler, and he needs some cabinets and I need some shoes? Well, why do we need a middleman? Can't we work something out? Can't we create something amongst ourselves and keep the resources amongst ourselves? Sometimes that looks like local communities. Sometimes that looks like semi-larger communities. And sometimes that looks like global communities where a resource isn't available in this one particular place, but it is available over in this particular place. But instead of creating that empty exchange, let's make sure that the exchanges are equal. Let's make sure that the time and effort and energy and skill that goes into creating this is roughly equivalent to the time and energy and effort and skill that goes into creating that. If we can keep that balance, then money essentially actually disappears. And what we end up doing is trading experience for experience, time for time, expertise for expertise. And if we all find ourselves doing the things that we love to do, and we love the things we're doing, then suddenly it becomes a labor of love. And now we're exchanging love with each other.
Instead of spending your money on a $200 pair of tennis shoes because you think it's going to make you worth something, you can spend your money on something that's actually going to help you, actually going to bring you up in your life, or something that you can use to create something new, to bring yourself into the space of freedom.
Because at the end of the day, the only thing that a dollar bill is good for or $100 bill for that matter, or even $1,000 bill, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's nowhere to spend it, the only thing it's really good for, two things: starting a fire and wiping your ass. And forgive me, I think you can probably find something better to wipe your ass with.
You fucking did it. You really did it, yeah. You fucking did it. You fucking did it. You fucking did it. You really did it, yeah. You fucking did it. You fucking did it. All those who hanging around the water cooler will never believe how you tackled 1,000 puzzle pieces, and you can see it before we completed it, before we made it whole. How you put it all together with a blindfold. You like a lone game, chuckling who keeps the game going, but you claim to fame as how you like to lay low under the limelight, which can hurt your eyes. If you're not careful, you'll become another devil in disguise. But you watch your back, you watch your back. You're growing eyes in the back of your head. You're repenting of the sneak attack, sneak attack. You must be keeping secret weapons in your fanny pack. You're like my laughing gas, you got the cat to dance. You're like Lance on the mountain in the Tour de France. You got a wingspan spanning the globe. You got gold and you're teaching us all to let go. You're a wise old owl when you're the cat's meow. If this were 12th grade, you would be my cap and gown. If this were India, then you would be a sacred cow, and I'd bow down to you. So grateful to the gods for making you. You fucking did it. You really did it, yeah. You fucking did it. You fucking did it. La 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 la. You really did it, yeah. You fucking did it. Ba da 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 da. You'll be standing up for the equal rights of the American people, and you'll be meeting all the influential seekers with a similar dream. You got a front seat saved that's ablaze with your name and a superhero cape on.